This is the Sleep Historian. Each night we explore the echoes of the past, stories told slowly to calm the mind and ease you towards sleep. If you enjoy these quiet journeys through time, please like and subscribe, and let the next story begin. Night rests over a city built of timber and thatch. You stand on a quiet rise beyond London's walls, looking down at a tangle of roofs and chimneys pressed together in the dark. Narrow streets disappear between leaning houses, their upper stories almost touching. The air smells faintly of smoke from 1,000 hearths, mixed with the sour tang of nearby river mud. Church towers rise like markers above the crowded lanes. Somewhere within, bakery ovens cool, taverns quieten, shutters close. London sleeps, unaware that its shape, its streets, and much of its wood will soon be tested by flame. Let your view drift closer, sliding over rooftops and into the maze below. In 1666, London is a dense, creaking organism. Markets, workshops, inns and homes wedged tightly together inside medieval walls. Many buildings are half-timbered, their beams dry from summers of sun and winters of smoky fires. Plague has only recently receded. Fear has become a familiar neighbor. Yet life goes on. Bread baked before dawn, ale served late into the evening, goods traded along the river. No one imagines that within days, fire will redraw the city's map and its people's memories forever. Walk with me into one of London's narrow lanes on a late summer evening. Timber houses lean inward, their upper stories shadowing the street below. Lanterns hang from brackets, casting small pools of light that leave deep pockets of darkness between them. Overhead, washing lines stretch from window to window. The air is thick, smoke from hearths, smells of fish and tallow, the tang of nearby tanneries. Carts pass slowly, wheels bumping over uneven stones. You can almost touch both sides of the lane with outstretched hands. Fire here would find no shortage of paths. Step inside a typical London home. The floor is uneven, boards polished by generations of feet. A hearth dominates one wall, its low flames licking at blackened bricks. Above, wooden beams run across the ceiling, dry and smoke-stained. In a corner, rushes cover the floor, crackling softly when walked upon. Candles burn in simple holders, their light flickering against wattle and daub walls. A woman trims a wick with careful fingers. A child dozes on a low stool, head leaning against the table. This is comfort as people understand it. Warmth, light, and familiar wood all around. London streets follow no clean plan. They twist around older paths, markets, and parishes. You travel toward the river and find yourself diverted through alleys barely wide enough for a single cart. Wooden signs creak above head height, advertising taverns, chandlers, and cloth merchants. Rubbish piles in corners waiting to be removed, straw scattering underfoot. On dry days, dust hangs in the air. On wet ones, mud clings to shoes. Over everything, thatch, shingles, and timber crowd together. The city has grown organically, without thought for what might happen if one house, then many, caught fire. Stand by the Thames as evening deepens. The river reflects pinpoints of light from windows and torches along the wharves. Barges shift with the tide, their wooden hulls creaking as water slaps gently against them. Warehouses line the banks, stuffed with goods: pitch, oil, timber, hemp, sugar, and cloth. Many are valuable. All are flammable. Men finish loading barrels by lamplight, ropes groaning as they tighten. The smell of tar mixes with the river's damp breath and the faint odor of spilled grain. Along this crowded waterfront, wealth and danger sit closely wrapped together in wood. Look upward to the city's many church spires, marking parishes like points on a map. Each parish has responsibilities: poor relief, record keeping, and sometimes fire watching. Yet formal firefighting is limited. Leather buckets, fire hooks, hand-pumped engines, these exist, but in small numbers. Water must be carried by hand or fetched from the river. When blazes occur, neighbors form lines, passing brimming buckets from well to flame. Success depends on speed, coordination, and luck. In a city this crowded, even a modest delay can decide whether fire dies harmlessly or begins to run unchecked. The summer of 1666 has been hot and dry. Imagine the feel of the air: warm, slightly dusty, with a faint crackle in every wooden beam. Roofs bake in the sun day after day. Cellars and lofts grow stuffy. Rain has been scarce, leaving water levels low. People speak of the weather in passing, not as a warning, but as inconvenience. Inside homes, hearth fires burn for cooking and warmth. Candles are set in windows and stairwells. Sparks rise and fade unnoticed. The conditions for disaster are present, but they wear the disguise of ordinary life. In early September, Londoners go about their business, unaware of what approaches. Traders secure their stalls for the night. Bakers rake embers from ovens. Tavern keepers wipe down benches, dousing candles one by one. A watchman calls the hour along a darkened street, his staff tapping the ground in reassuring rhythm. In Pudding Lane, near the river, one bakery among many closes its shutters. Ovens there have long served the neighborhood and the king's household. No one pays it special attention. Perhaps a few embers glow brighter than usual, but behind closed doors, no eyes see them. Return to the edge of the city as night grows still. London lies mostly quiet, its sounds softened to distant murmurs. A late cart, a barking dog, footsteps on cobbles. Smoke from countless hearths rises in low, steady columns, blurring into the dark sky. The air feels thick but calm. From here, the city seems solid, established, almost permanent. Generations have built and rebuilt within its walls. Yet you now know how tightly wood, pitch, and cloth are packed together. A single spark, at the wrong time and place, could test everything people take for granted. Now drift toward Pudding Lane in the small hours of Sunday, 2 September 1666. The street is narrow, hemmed in by tall houses and warehouses. Inside the bakery of Thomas Farriner, ovens have been working late, their bricks still holding intense heat. Embers glow in their arched mouths. A servant tidies the room, raking ashes and stacking kindling for the morning's work. Outside, the lane is quiet, lit only by faint starlight and the occasional lantern. When the last door is bolted, warmth remains trapped inside, heat seeping into timber, reaching toward anything dry enough to catch. At some point in the stillness, fire escapes its boundaries. Perhaps a spark lands in stored fuel, or a smoldering ember near a wooden board finds new life. However it begins, flames take hold in the bakery and start to climb. They find beams darkened by years of smoke, kindling stacked for convenience, empty barrels smelling faintly of flour and oil. By the time sleeping occupants sense heat and smoke, the fire has moved beyond a corner blaze. It is already testing joists, pushing toward the roof, looking for a path out into the lane. You stand in the lane as the first alarmed voices break the quiet. Light flickers behind shuttered windows, then bursts into view as glass cracks. Flames show themselves at an upper story, licking outward hungrily. Neighbors wake abruptly, pulled from sleep by shouts and the smell of smoke. Some rush into the street in nightclothes, carrying small bundles, uncertain what to save. Others grab buckets, blankets, or hooks. The fire is fierce but still local. In these first moments, a determined effort might contain it. Yet wind stirs along the lane, fanning embers into bright fragments. The wind that night is strong and insistent, blowing from the east. It threads through Pudding Lane, lifting sparks and pieces of burning timber. Flames cross the narrow street easily, touching the eaves of houses opposite. Dry wood responds with sickening speed. Within minutes, what was a single building fire becomes a row of burning roofs. Smoke thickens, stinging eyes and throats. People cough as they form bucket lines toward nearby wells and cisterns. Water arcs through the air, hissing when it meets hot walls and doorways. But the fire's appetite has already grown large and confident. Word spreads through the waking city. Messengers hurry to alert officials. Among those roused is the Lord Mayor, Sir Thomas Bloodworth. When he arrives near the scene, the fire has already claimed several houses. Demolishing buildings to create fire breaks is one known method of control. Harsh, but sometimes necessary. Yet hesitation takes hold. Whose property will be sacrificed? Who bears the cost and blame? According to later accounts, the mayor underestimates the danger, suggesting the flames can be doused with simple effort. Precious time drifts away while the fire continues to search for new fuel. As dawn approaches, you follow the spread southward and westward toward the river. Warehouses along Thames Street catch fire, their contents feeding the blaze. Barrels of oil, pitch, sugar, and spirits add heat and smoke, sending flames leaping from building to building. The river, which might have been a natural barrier, becomes instead a stage for burning craft and blazing wharves. Smoke pours across the water, dimming the early light. Those on boats watch helplessly as fire climbs and curls along the riverfront, turning familiar shapes into moving silhouettes of orange, black, and dense gray. From rooftop vantage points, the scale of the fire becomes clear. A wide swath of the eastern city glows with restless light. Roofs collapse inward, sending showers of sparks skyward. People move like small, frantic shapes along lanes and courts, some carrying belongings, others simply staring. Among the observers is Samuel Pepys, a naval administrator who will later record what he sees. He takes a boat on the Thames, noting how the fire seems to run along the river's edge. His diary will become one of the clearest windows into these days. But for now, he only watches. By mid-morning on Sunday, the fire is no longer a local incident. It is a force reshaping the city's eastern core. Attempts to fight it with buckets and hand engines falter against heat and collapsing structures. Without decisive orders to demolish buildings in its path, the blaze finds almost no interruption. You stand on a hill beyond the walls and see multiple columns of smoke merging into a single vast cloud. The fire has begun its long journey westward, carried by wind, fuel, and the choices and delays of those trying to command it. Sunday afternoon deepens, and the fire pushes west along the packed lanes of medieval London. You move through streets where people struggle to decide what to save: a chest of linen, a family Bible, a handful of tools. Smoke rolls low, obscuring rooftops. Flames leap unpredictably, crossing alleys in sudden bursts. The heat is immense, radiating through walls even before flames arrive. Churches, homes, and shops fall in quick succession. The fire's movement feels almost deliberate, though it follows only wind, fuel, and chance. Each collapse sends embers swirling into the sky, seeding the next stage of destruction. At the Royal Exchange, merchants gather in alarm. The building stands tall, its stone arcades filled with goods and records representing countless transactions. People rush to retrieve ledgers, strong boxes, and whatever they can carry. Horses strain against carts loaded hastily with valuables. The exchange's stone frame offers some hope of resilience, but surrounding structures are wooden and dry. Flames creep closer, smoke pressing into courtyards. A clerk clutches a bundle of documents to his chest, hesitating before stepping into the crowded street. The scene is urgent, but controlled chaos replaces any coherent defense. The fire advances steadily. Southward, near the river, the fire consumes wharves and warehouses. Barrels burst with sharp cracks, throwing sparks into the air. Ships untie their moorings in haste, drifting away to avoid catching fire. The water glows with reflected flames, turning the Thames into a trembling ribbon of orange and gold. On the far bank, spectators gather, hands shielding their faces from heat carried across the water. A ferryman dips his oar into the river cautiously, glancing at floating debris, some charred, some still burning. London's lifeline becomes witness to its vulnerability. As evening approaches, the fire reaches Lombard Street, where businesses and goldsmiths operate. Iron chests lie locked in vaults below ground, but heat above threatens everything. Some shopkeepers bury valuables in courtyards, hoping the earth will protect them. Others attempt to move goods by boat, loading sacks and small barrels under smoke-darkened skies. You watch a goldsmith wrap a small carved box in cloth, tying it tightly before handing it to a relative. Fear shifts into resignation for many. The fire's pace leaves little room for careful planning. Buildings groan as beams fail. Night descends on the second day of the fire. The winds remain strong, blowing embers westward. You walk toward the guild hall, normally a symbol of civic authority. Tonight, its steps are littered with exhausted watchmen, clerks, and magistrates debating options. Fire hooks, pumps, and explosives are available, yet coordination falters. The Lord Mayor, overwhelmed and unsure, drifts from one area to another without firm direction. A single candle flickers inside a nearby chamber where maps lie open, ink smudged by hurried fingers. Leadership seems fragile, almost as strained as the city's burning timbers. In the cramped streets near St. Paul's churchyard, booksellers scramble to move stock into carts and wagons. The area is famous for its printing houses and stalls, each filled with volumes, pamphlets, and manuscripts. Flames approach fast, carried along by rows of timber-framed shops. Paper ignites easily. The scent of burning parchment spreads as the fire takes hold. A printer runs his finger along the spine of a book before placing it into a crate, knowing he cannot save everything. Words and wood vanish together in the growing heat. St. Paul's Cathedral rises above the city, its great stone walls thought to be invulnerable. Scaffolding surrounds it for renovations, thick with dry timber. Inside, workers attempt to clear debris and protect precious items. The dean orders fire breaks, but the fire's scale makes them difficult to execute. Smoke gathers beneath the high vaults, drifting toward stained glass windows. People place hope in the building's solid frame, believing it will resist the flames sweeping below. Yet the wind continues to send sparks upward, carrying danger to even this monumental house of worship. By the close of Sunday, much of the eastern city is lost. Flames outline the skyline in jagged, shifting patterns. The air is thick with ash, coating clothes and faces. Refugees gather on open fields beyond the walls, carrying what little they saved: a pot, a bundle of clothes, a few coins. Some sit silently, watching their homes burn. Others pray or speak in hushed voices. The fire's glow reflects in countless eyes, uniting strangers in a shared sense of uncertainty. This is only the end of the first day. London's hardest moments are still ahead. Monday begins with winds still strong. You move through the city's heart, where the fire pushes toward the center of London. Streets you walked yesterday are now unrecognizable. Charred beams lie collapsed across lanes. Heat radiates from smoldering piles. Residents rush past with bundles, unsure where safety lies. In the distance, the flames roar like a steady, consuming breath. The fire now behaves less like a series of building fires and more like a single vast organism moving west. Its hunger seems endless. Even the urgent efforts of firefighters appear small beside its expanding reach. At the riverfront, boatmen ferry families to Southwark or farther downstream. Some passengers carry pets in their arms. Others clutch small chests or bundles tied with rope. A mother steadies her child as the boat rocks, the child's face reflecting orange light from the burning city behind them. Ash drifts down like dark snowflakes. The boatman rows steadily, his oar dipping into water mottled with reflections of flame. These crossings repeat for hours, boats shuttling back and forth as Londoners seek distance from the heat and smoke. The Thames becomes a corridor of escape. Inside the Royal Navy's storage yard at the riverside, men coordinate removal of supplies. Ropes creak, crates thud, and orders echo across the wharf. Samuel Pepys, recalled again, watches activity with concern. He later notes the frantic movement, the fear that the fire may damage resources vital to national defense. He urges that the king and his advisors be informed that the situation is far worse than rumored. His influence, along with others, will soon contribute to stronger actions. But the fire grows even as messages travel. Time seems always a few steps behind the flames. By midday Monday, the flames reach St. Paul's Cathedral. At first, smoke curls around its stone exterior harmlessly. But wooden scaffolding encasing the structure catches fire quickly, wrapping the cathedral in climbing orange. You stand at the edge of the churchyard, feeling heat intensify as flames ascend the timbers. The roof, filled with centuries of dust and dry timbers, begins to smolder. Soon fire penetrates the structure, igniting beams hidden above vaulted ceilings. The noise is deep and resonant, timbers snapping, lead melting, stones cracking. A building thought unassailable begins to succumb. Inside the cathedral precincts, people attempt to save goods stored there for protection. Merchants had placed chests, documents, and stocks of books within the stone walls, believing them safer than wooden shops. Now they scramble to remove what they can. Smoke pours into the nave, turning the air opaque. Flames light the windows from outside, casting trembling patterns on the floor. A man heaves a heavy chest onto a cart, his hands slipping on the scorching iron handles. He looks up once more at the rising flames before pulling the cart away, unsure where safety exists. The destruction of St. Paul's becomes a defining moment. When the great roof collapses, a wave of sparks sweeps upward, visible across the burning city. Lead from the roof runs in molten streams along the streets, glowing as it cools. Stones crash inward, sending vibrations through the ground. From vantage points far away, Londoners watch in stunned silence as the cathedral's silhouette dissolves. For many, the fall of St. Paul's is more than structural loss. It signifies the collapse of a symbol of stability, faith, and London's enduring identity. The fire's reach now feels absolute. Beyond the cathedral, the fire spreads into the commercial heart of London. Cheapside, Paternoster Row, and the surrounding lanes. Shops collapse one after another. Goods burn in heaps where merchants once displayed them proudly. Bells ring in alarm until their ropes char and beams fall. Firefighters work desperately, forming bucket lines, using hooks to pull down walls, and bringing out hand engines. But the heat forces them back repeatedly. A firefighter wipes sweat and ash from his face, coughing as he signals retreat. Even the bravest efforts yield little progress against the blaze's steady march. As Monday evening arrives, the fire reaches new heights of intensity. A vast column of smoke rises into the darkening sky, illuminated from beneath by flames. The glow reflects against low clouds, turning night into a shifting, reddish haze. People on the city's edges watch as glowing embers drift like fireflies toward open fields. Many spend the night outdoors, clutching blankets and sharing water with strangers. Exhaustion sets in, yet fear keeps most awake. The city feels both immense and fragile, a place defined by what fire consumes and what it might still spare. Tuesday dawns with a faint, hazy light barely piercing the smoke. The wind continues to drive flames westward, though with slightly less force than before. You walk through areas burned the previous night, streets reduced to glowing rubble, charred beams jutting from collapsed houses, the air warm from lingering heat. Survivors move among the ruins, searching for anything salvageable. A woman lifts a piece of scorched metal, then lets it fall with a soft clatter. Beyond her, the fire still burns fiercely, closer to the Strand. London feels divided, devastation behind, uncertainty ahead. King Charles II and his brother, the Duke of York, take a direct role in firefighting efforts. You see them near a firebreak being prepared, their presence surprising many onlookers. The king's clothes are darkened by ash. The Duke helps direct men carrying explosives. They order the demolition of houses ahead of the fire, a decision overdue but now essential. Gunpowder blasts echo through the streets, sending shockwaves through nearby buildings. Clouds of dust rise, mixing with smoke. The fire meets these cleared spaces with diminished strength, finally encountering resistance shaped by urgent royal command. Along Fleet Street, firefighters and soldiers work together, destroying buildings to widen fire breaks. They move quickly, breaking walls, removing beams and dragging debris clear of the road. The air is thick with dust, making it difficult to breathe. A young soldier pauses to cover his mouth with his sleeve before lifting another beam. The sounds of demolition blend with distant roaring flames, creating an unsettling rhythm. Despite exhaustion, determination grows. People sense that the tide may turn if they can widen the gap ahead of the fire before the next strong gust arrives. By midday Tuesday, the fire reaches the Temple District, a complex of legal chambers, halls, and gardens near the river. The area's trees and timber structures ignite rapidly. You stand at the edge of the gardens as flames climb tall elms, their branches crackling like distant musket fire. Lawyers and students carry books and documents toward boats waiting at the riverbank. A clerk grips a leather-bound volume tightly, pressing it to his chest as if it were a living thing. The fire feeds on both nature and craft, leaving little distinction between them. At Whitehall, the court prepares to intervene more directly. Royal advisors debate further strategies, their voices rising and falling beneath ornate ceilings. Some urge more demolitions. Others worry about lawlessness if too many properties are destroyed. Inkpots, papers, and maps clutter the table, smeared with ash from messengers' hands. One advisor traces the fire's expected path on a map, his fingertip leaving a faint gray streak. Outside, guards shift uneasily, catching occasional glimpses of smoke drifting above rooftops. Decisions made here may determine whether the fire reaches the heart of royal power. Near the northern outskirts, families flee with carts piled high with bedding, cookware, and precious keepsakes. Chickens fluster inside wicker cages. A dog trots beside a child clutching a wooden toy. Smoke follows them like a dull shadow. Many head toward open fields and more fields, where thousands have already camped. The air there smells of damp grass, sweat, and distant smoke. People spread blankets, erect makeshift shelters, and share news. Strangers compare losses and offer small comforts. Though the fire feels immense, community grows in these temporary encampments. In the afternoon, the wind shifts slightly, slowing the fire's advance. This change brings cautious hope. Firefighters focus on strengthening fire breaks and extinguishing smaller blazes that spark near them. A hand engine crew pumps steadily, the device wheezing as water splashes against glowing embers. One man wipes soot from his brow, leaving a pale streak across his face. The combined effort of demolition, water, and shifting weather begins to show results. For the first time in days, the fire's edge flickers with signs of hesitation. As evening descends, the fire loses some of its former fury. People gather at vantage points to watch, unsure whether to believe the change. Flames still burn fiercely in pockets, but the great roaring front now moves inconsistently, slowed by broken rows of demolished houses. A woman holding a bundled infant whispers a quiet prayer, not of fear but of relief. The glow across the sky is less uniform, more fragmented. London's ordeal is not over, but the fire's unstoppable momentum has begun to fracture. Wednesday morning arrives cooler, the wind calmer. You walk through streets where smoldering ruins smoke gently, their heat slowly fading. Firefighters extinguish lingering sparks with buckets of water, stamping out embers with leather boots. Occasional collapses echo in the distance as weakened walls give way. The main body of the fire has been halted, though smaller blazes continue in isolated areas. People speak cautiously of hope. For the first time since Sunday, Londoners feel they may have a future beyond the next few hours. Exhaustion weighs on everyone, but relief tugs gently at the edges of their thoughts. At last, attention turns from fighting the flames to assessing the damage. You move through Cheapside, where only stone thresholds and portions of walls remain. The familiar bustle of shops and stalls is gone. In their place lie charred beams, broken tiles, and piles of ash. A merchant sifts through debris, finding a piece of melted metal that once belonged to his scales. He closes his hand around it, then pockets the fragment as a keepsake. Every street carries similar scenes, small recoveries amid overwhelming loss. Not far away, near St. Paul's, the ground is still too hot to walk comfortably. Smoke drifts lazily from the ruins of the cathedral, rising through broken arches. Workmen approach carefully, examining stones for stability. A mason taps a block with his hammer, listening to the tone it makes. The once majestic building is reduced to skeletal walls and scattered fragments. People gather silently at a distance, some crossing themselves, others standing with bowed heads. For many, the loss feels personal, an emotional wound mirroring the city's physical destruction. In the fields where refugees camp, relief efforts begin. Tents appear, provided by the king and various charitable groups. Bread, cheese, and ale are distributed from wagons. A physician moves among the gathered families, checking on the elderly and tending to minor injuries. Children play near makeshift shelters, their laughter faint but persistent. Despite uncertainty, a sense of shared resilience emerges. Londoners who fled in shock now talk about rebuilding, wondering how long it will take and who will lead the effort. Even in their exhaustion, they imagine the city rising again. By Thursday, the fire is largely extinguished. Smoldering remains continue to burn underground in cellars and hidden corners, but the threat of further spread is gone. Officials and surveyors walk the city with measuring rods and ledgers, estimating losses. The scale is immense. Thousands of homes, hundreds of streets, dozens of churches, and key civic buildings all destroyed. Yet some structures survive. The Tower of London stands firm, and many riverside warehouses remain intact. London feels both familiar and utterly transformed. The fire has reshaped not just buildings, but the city's sense of itself. In the aftermath, discussions begin about how London should be rebuilt. Visions range from grand boulevards and open squares to practical, orderly streets with improved fire safety. Architects sketch new layouts on parchment. Merchants argue for the preservation of profitable lanes. Residents simply hope for a home again. As debates unfold, the smell of smoke lingers in the air, a reminder of urgency. People know that rebuilding must be deliberate. Wider streets, fire breaks, and brick construction will be essential to prevent another catastrophe. The city's future takes shape amid the ashes of its past. Over time, responsibility for reconstruction falls largely to Sir Christopher Wren and other surveyors. You visit a temporary workshop where Wren reviews drawings of a new St. Paul's Cathedral. Rolls of parchment lie on a table, weighed down by small stones. He studies a dome design with steady eyes, aware of the symbolic importance of the task. Outside, workers gather salvaged stone and begin clearing foundations across the district. The air hums with a cautious optimism, the belief that London can rise not just restored, but improved. Months later, London still bears scars, but rebuilding has begun. New brick houses rise where wooden ones once stood. Streets widen, creating space for movement, air, and light. Markets reopen in temporary stalls. Church bells ring again from surviving towers. You walk through areas once filled with flame and now bustling with labor. Amid the noise of hammers and voices, hope feels solid, almost tangible. The fire has taken much, but it has also cleared the way for renewal. The city adapts, rebuilds, and begins to find itself again. Let your thoughts drift back through the city you've just traveled. Remember the narrow lanes of timber and thatch, the quiet bakery before dawn, the first sparks rising unseen. Recall the frightened families moving through smoke, the cathedral's fall, the long nights spent under glowing skies, and the slow, fragile hope that followed. These moments soften as they settle together, forming a single memory of a city reshaped by fire. London stands today because people rebuilt with patience, courage, and care. The flames destroyed much, yet in their aftermath, new foundations emerged, stronger, wider, and made to endure. Return now to your own room, where quiet replaces the roar of the fire. The walls around you are still, steady, and familiar. No wind carries embers toward open windows. No alarms echo through the night. Let the story of London's endurance drift into the background, settling like smoke, fading into cool morning air. You are safe, warm, and far from danger. Allow your breathing to soften, your thoughts to loosen, and your body to rest. The night holds no threat, only calm. Let sleep come gently, like the quiet after a long, faded flame.